thing that you can say to a bully. And how does Captain America teach us this? That's what we're going to be covering today. Hey, my name is Dr. Ed, and I'm just a geek kid who was shown some mercy when he was caught cheating by his grade 7 French teacher. So if you're joining us for the first time, put a lightning bolt or something in the chat so that I know that you're following. Would love to have you join us today. I grew up in the northeast hood of Calgary, next to Pine Ridge. And you don't have to be a Calgarian to know why this community was nicknamed Crime Ridge. It, I'm not new to the world of bullying. I remember when I was in school, that was a big issue. And I remember trying to think about taking justice into my own hands. And I remember how scary that was. That was a scary moment for me. It was also a scary moment for my parents. And since that time, I've learned a lot about bullying, and I want to share some of my experiences in this space. So my goal today is to talk a little bit about Captain America, because he's kind of the perfect example. And I love origin stories. And during lockdown with my kids, we're rewatching a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so a lot of the early ones. And in it, I'm discovering kind of new things as we go along. And I'll be sharing some of those insights and some of those thoughts with you because I think they're relevant to computers and they're relevant to the type of cyberbullying that happens today. And so today I will be covering a little bit more about bullying and cyberbullying while I talk about Captain America. But without further ado, I think I want to start off with my first clip, which is one of my favorites. And so, if you will join with me, I'm going to show you a brief clip with the audio. And what I want you to do here is I'm going to erase this because there are two people that we're going to cover today. So, the first is we're going to cover Steve Rogers. So, we're going to look at how many hits Steve takes. All right. So, we'll put a hit counter here. And then on the other side, I want to put the bully on the other side. So I'm going to put bully on the other side. So you see Steve on one side, you see the bully on the other side. I'm going to talk about how many hits they take, and I'll be counting along the way. Maybe I'll use a yellow color. Okay, so if you're ready, here we go. All right.
Forces will face any threat, no matter the size.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day. Hey, pick on somebody your own size.
Sometimes I think you like getting punched.
I had him on the ropes.
How many times is this?
Okay, so we're doing the tally count. Were you keeping count? So I counted 4, right? So I counted 4 times that Steve took basically a hit to the face, and I counted maybe one time that I would say one time realistically that the bully took one to the face, and then a kick and he was out of there. And so this was my key message, was that we see bullies as these tough guys. And what they do is they start with talking, right? They start by trash talking you. So they're going to say things that are mean and they're going to be threatening you. And then it turns physical, right? And then it becomes something they physically hit you. And I think this is pretty typical of real world bullying. at least the bullying that I experienced. And so they first are like just trash talking you, and then the next step they're punching you. And the thing that blew me away was that, Steve took 4 hits to the face here. He didn't take one hit and then run away. He took one, stood back up. He had the shield. He took another one. He got hit again, and he went back down over and over and over again. But if you looked at the bullies was very different. They didn't have the same experience, right? He took one to the face, and then that was it. He was done. And I think that that's my key message here is that bullies, in general, bullies don't take hits. They can deliver it verbally, and they'll hit you, but like when they get hit, they don't have the same level of resilience as someone like Steve Rogers. And this is Steve Rogers before he got the super serum. Steve Rogers, before he got the super serum, was already showing that he was not going to just let the bully beat him up. He was going to fight back. And I loved his phrase, which people talk about all the time. The phrase, I could do this all day. Because when people say, I could do this all day, they're saying, I'm ready, right? I'm going to keep coming back. I'm not going to give up in the face of this bully. And I think that message that we need to not be constantly running, showing that resilience, and realizing that sometimes when you punch back against the bully, they can't take too many hits before they need to run away. And I'm asking, like, what are the bullies? Who are the bullies in your life? What are like experiences that you've had with bullying? These are important questions. Like, bullying does not just only happen in schools. It happens in the workplace as well. You may be experiencing a type of bullying where you just get used to running away. And I think that I was talking about really toxic cultures in the workplace yesterday when I was referring to turning red. And so you can go back to my channel and check it out if this is something that is of interest to you. But the same kind of thing can happen with bullying culture at work. And so this is something that I want to expand upon once I've gone through a little bit more of the movie, Steve Rogers. So I want to talk about the moment. So Steve Rogers, so basically my message here is that bullies can't take hits. They can't take the hits, right? If you fight back, they're not going to be there forever. And there are bullies that are people, and then there are bullies which are like part of our mind and our thinking. Essentially, the whole operative works off of the emotion of fear, right? The purpose is to work off of fear. So I see that as very, very powerful, right? We need to be aware of fear and its impact and how much it changes our lives. It changes everything that we do. We just, if you start off with fear, you're always going to be running, right? Your instinct is to the fight or flight, right? Your your instinct is to run. But the surprising thing is that when we fight our fear, when we say we're going to punch back and we tell them, yeah, we're going to go, I could do this all day, then we find that our fear wasn't as strong as we thought it was. We thought that the bully, and it could be the bully could just be in our mind, that it was just this thinking that, oh, I I can't do this, or I'm not capable, or like people say that like I'm just no good. And it turns out that you fight that and you find out there's actually not that much resistance. Like the first hit and and that bully is running away and that fear is running away. And so think of it from that perspective, that there always is some kind of fear. Like we are naturally built to fear things on purpose because it's a survival technique. We need this in order to stay safe. But it is that same fear that prevents us from taking risks, prevents us from trying new things, and ultimately prevents us from being creative. And so fear is one of the ultimate creativity limiters. But when we have let go of fear and when we fought back against the fear, everything changes. So let me show you the explanation from none other than Steve Rogers prior to the super serum about his thought on fear and about running away. Okay, here we go.
I got beat up in that alley. In that parking lot. And behind that diner.
Did you have something against running away?
You start running, they'll never let you stop. You stand up, you push back. Can't say no forever, right?
I know little of what that's like, to have every door shut in your face.
So there it is. So I'm using a super short clip because I feel that that really illustrates the point. So he's in the car with Peggy, and the message that Peggy had was like, "Do you have something against running away? Like, what's the problem? Like, people are always beating you up. People beat me up here. Beat me up here. People beat me up here. Did you have something about against running away?" And his message was, you run away, you're gonna be running away forever. There's no limit. Like they're always gonna be there, right? But if you stand up, you tell them, I can do this all day, they can't say no forever. They can't like beat you up indefinitely, right? They know that there's gonna be consequences. So their threat is thinly veiled. It is not real. Like it's mostly like in our minds. Like we feel that it's a real threat in our minds, but the reality is you fight back. They cannot resist forever. They cannot keep fighting you indefinitely. And that's the powerful thing, is that even before the super serum, Steve Rogers was showing that he had already won. Because what he had that was greater than the bully was way greater willpower. His willpower like was at least 4 times greater than the number of hits that his bully would take. His willpower was the thing that was stronger. So he was very much already the hero on the inside. And really, there's that message of there were 2 different outcomes, right? This whole movie, right? Like one of them turned into Captain America, and then the other one turned into Red Skull. It was the same super serum. It was the same super serum, but what determines whether or not one person is going to turn out to be Captain America and then the other person is going to be the Red Skull? What determines is what's on the inside. Now, we don't have a super serum in real life, but we kind of do. We kind of do have a super serum in real life. And that super serum is money. We may not be able to, like, individually have the strength of multiple people, but we can certainly hire multiple people to get that level of strength. We can start a corporation, right? And we can get other people to be a part of our team. And it is with money that it amplifies what is inside. And nobody can fix that, right? Like nobody can, like money cannot just give you a better personality. It cannot make you a better person. You have to be a better person first before, like, no amount of money is going to fix that. And so money, just like the super serum, amplifies or magnifies what's inside. Right? It magnifies what is inside. And that means that all of the things that are good about you get magnified, but also all of the things that are bad about you also get magnified. And so this is very important to keep in mind, right? And so when Dr. Erskine, who had invented the super serum, was trying to figure out who he was going to give it to in America, he was looking at qualities beyond the physical strength. And that's what I'm going to cover next, is I want to show you a little bit about that moment. There was that moment where he knew, you know what? Steve Rogers, he's the guy. He is the guy I want to give the super serum to. Which, if you think about it, like, is the same kind of question that people ask when, like, a venture capitalist is asking, I'm going to be investing in this company. What's on the inside? What about the people there? Right? I'm investing in those people. What happens if I amplify those people? What happens if I give that individual $1 million? What are they going to do? What if I give them 10 million or 100 million? Right? That's what Dr. Erskine was doing. So let's take a look at that last clip. Here we go.
Throw me a bone. Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders, he's a soldier.
He's a bully.
You don't win wars with niceness, Doctor. You win wars with guts. Grenade! Move, move, move! Get away! Get back!
Dummy grenade. All clear. Back in formation.
Is this a test?
He's still skinny.
I love it. So the thing that separated him from everyone else, at least in the movie, and kind of that moment that Dr. Erskine knew that he was the one that needed to be magnified, when he was willing to sacrifice himself for others. And he knew that that was something that was worth magnifying. That was something that that people really needed. That was the characteristics that could be a role model for others. He knew that he may not live forever. He knew that his experiments could be, he can't give the super serum to every single individual. So he had to be very selective. And from it, he was looking for characteristics beyond the physical. And I think in the same way, money also needs to look at characteristics beyond the physical. There was this other soldier, like this person who was performing well on all the drills. He was a soldier, but he was also a bully. And so if we amplified him, you get effectively another Red Skull. And so what is it that you're amplifying? I think that some leaders, they express strength as a result of fighting against fear. Their fight against fear is so strong that allows them to blaze a new path forward when we're experiencing some of the most troubling times. But those same leaders during like the good times, like times where you need to make careful decisions about where you're going to move next, they also tend to be the ones that shoot the messenger, right? And so if you give bad news to them, they shoot you. What happens is you just stop getting bad news, right? And that is really, really important because it is the bad news that will tell you you're absolutely moving in the wrong direction. You are leading your company, you're leading your organization in a place that is really going to hurt it. And so that's bullying. And they go from, it's interesting, like you live long enough to go from being the hero of your own story to becoming the villain. And eventually, when people get to this point of power, they forgot all the things that led them there. Or maybe they did remember them. It's just that fighting. But I think that really it's that humility that people had at the beginning that tends to be the thing that gets lost. And it is from there that we really start to know who that person is really on the core, like on the inside. And the reality is we don't know. We don't know what the future is. Nobody knows what the future is. Like we cannot, this is why, like I mentioned, curriculum is and always will be political because it's a prediction on the future and nobody knows what the future is going to be. It is uncertain. So the more ideas that you have at the table, the more perspectives that you have at the table, the more diverse voices, minority voices that you bring in to the decision-making table, the better the decisions that you're going to make. But usually we only tend to hire and we only tend to promote those who are strong-willed, those who are aggressive against others. They vigorously argue their point of view, especially in a corporate or a business setting. But those, essentially what we end up doing is we end up amplifying the bullies at work. And so you get a highly masculine culture. You get something that is deeply intolerant of different perspectives, deeply hostile to different points of view. And as a result, the whole ship gets led in a terrible direction. And so we have in today a lot more automation, a lot more outsourcing. Companies that are embracing this creative decision making are seeing themselves stand out in the market. And that's what I do. That like I help change leaders stand out in a globally competitive market. Um, I was first exposed to social AI when I had a YouTube video of my research go viral in 2005. And during that time, you would see a lot of comments. Yeah, sure, people would say this is fake or like, come on, like this is ridiculous. It's funny, like when I was talking about using voice and um, using hand gestures at the same time, this was before iPhones, and people didn't believe it was possible. And now everybody has or most people have a smartphone in their pockets that includes a lot of this really incredible technology. And they have touchscreens on their phones. And so bullying is a real thing, especially online. And what tends to happen is that the people write like mean comments all the time on different posts that I have. And I've kind of started to realize that sometimes it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with like anything that you did actually in the post. Sometimes what people are trying to do is they're trying to borrow your credibility. They're trying to borrow your your perspective, right? So they're saying, "Oh, well maybe if I write a comment on this, I'll also get a lot of likes." Right? Like I'll also get really popular as a result. And if I write the contrarian view, I know that these algorithms, these AI algorithms, are going to promote it. That more people are going to see it. It'll be like the top listed comment on that post, right? Like we know that Facebook was geared, its algorithm was geared towards engagement, which is mostly focusing on likes and comments and reshares. So you write a really nasty comment and other people comment on that, well, then that's the one that needs to get promoted. So we have this massive hate accelerator, especially when it comes to AI systems. And nothing's really being done to change that simply because it's highly profitable for these companies. More people engaged means more watch time. And we're now measuring the milliseconds of watch time. And systems like TikTok, they don't even need to worry about how many people like or comment on a post. They just look at like how quickly you're scrolling. The attention gives them a lot of information about what is popular, what's going to keep people on their platform the longest. And so there's two choices that we can have. One is that we can treat this bully of social media as something that we're going to run away from, something that we're going to fear. Don't post anything on social media. It's going to come back and it's going to haunt you. This fear narrative is exactly what I dislike about most digital citizenship curriculum that's being posted in schools is they tell you to be afraid. Be afraid of posting stuff. Be afraid of getting your name out there. Be afraid of speaking to other people. It is a constant fear narrative. Whereas I feel like that's never going to work. You cannot run away from people on the internet indefinitely. You eventually are going to have to face people. You're going to have to stand up and you're eventually going to have to say, yeah, I can go at this all day. Right? In fact, I can go about this all year long. And that is what is really the thing that stops the bullying. Because there's lots of them online all the time. And it is the standing up It's saying, you know what? I'm going to stand up against racism. I'm going to stand up against ableism. I'm going to stand up against this type of bullying that's happening in our schools, or I'm going to stand up against not believing victims of sexual assault. These are all things that we can run away from, and we can say like, these things they're kind of gross, they're kind of controversial. We don't want to touch those things. They're too political. But we can stand up. We can stand up against what is happening right now in our society. And it is when we stand up, when we have our voice, that we start to see that those bullies who we thought, were impossible to fight against, they're actually pretty weak. And they actually run away pretty quick. You take that first comment, they're gone. They're gone. And so I've used this technique, like fighting back, to help change makers grow their recurring revenue. I've used the same techniques to help grow creativity within companies, to help them grow their revenue over the years. And it is when we have these, we can't get phenomenal results unless we have diverse ideas at the decision-making table. That people are willing to stand up for what is right, even when everyone else is against them. And that's why it's so important to not just have a single individual with a diverse perspective. Like, you need a team. I remember hearing from Patty Pon, who's the CEO of Calgary Arts, saying that when she joins a board, she asks like that there be 3 other people, like 3 other BIPOC individuals on the board as well, because she doesn't want to be a token. And she knows that if there's only one person, then generally stuff doesn't happen. Like, you have a board that is overwhelmingly just one perspective. Having one different perspective isn't going to work. So that's our goal. We want to rewrite diversity. We want to rewrite these ideas of standing up. I'm Dr. Ed, just a geek kid who has shown a little bit of favor when caught cheating in his French tests. And it was during those tests and the parent-teacher interviews where my French teacher said, I know Ed's struggling, but he's creative. So it's okay. It's going to be okay. And I realized that creativity applies to everything. It applies to how we make decisions. It applies to how we interact with each other on the internet. And I realized that when we are in this state of fear, that we are running away from people on the internet. And we are giving the cyber bullies exactly what they want, right? They want us to disappear. But when we stand up and we say, we're not going to take that, and we say that, you know what, I'm going to stand up to cyberbullying. I don't need awareness. No, I don't want people to be aware that cyberbullying happens and that they shouldn't post anything on the internet. This is the exact opposite of what is going to help us. We need to be ready and willing to fight back. We need to be ready and willing to call out people who are bullying on the internet. Reach out to the authorities, right? Who runs Twitter? Reach out to them. Who runs the different social media? Who are the police authorities that you can reach out to? Who can you help? Who can you help? Right? Like when a bomb is there, kind of like in Steve Rogers' example, our natural inclination is to keep ourselves safe, to run away. It takes a special kind of individual to say, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to take this thing, which is not my business, and I'm going to make it my business. I'm going to stand up. And so, how are you standing up? What are you doing to improve that? I'm Dr. Ed, and I'm here to empower the next generation of change leaders. Thank you,